One of the most frequently used light types in 3ds Max is the omnidirectional, more commonly referred to as the OmniLight. With its ability to illuminate a scene in 360 degrees, OmniLights serve as an ideal choice for illumination in quite a few situations. From lighting large unrestricted areas, to helping to create the bounced effect that a scene needs with its lighting in order to achieve a greater sense of realism. There's no doubt about it, OmniLights serve a very important purpose in most lighting layouts. To show you how they work, I'll be using a file named Floor and Walls. You can find it in the Working Files folder. The scene consists of a floor, 2 walls, and a little trim around where they all connect together. Now, before we start, in a previous video, I mentioned the fact that 3ds Max installs each scene it creates with a pair of hidden lights that are used to offer some initial illumination within its views. It's important to be aware that as you begin adding your own lights into a scene, those 2 hidden lights will be removed from the field of play. So as you click on the screen to create your first light, know that you'll from then on be working with only the lighting that you personally create. Okay, let's move over into the Create column of the command panel and we'll see what we can find. Third tab from the left on the second row, we'll click on Lights. We'll then drop into the Standard Light category, finding Omni in the left-hand row, third down. Let's go ahead and create one in the top view near the corner of the walls. In order to see the effect of our Omni light in our shaded view, we'll need to make an adjustment. Let's activate the perspective view and head up to its upper left-hand corner. From there, we'll click on the name Realistic. In the menu that drops down, we'll choose Lighting and Shadows, then Illuminate with Scene Lights. Notice how that has dramatically changed the way the scene looks. Remember, those original 2 hidden lights are no longer part of the equation, as we're now working off only our own efforts. To get the full effect of our new OmniLight, let's also turn on the Active Shade option in the Perspective view. This time, clicking on the name Perspective, from the menu we'll choose Extended Viewports, then Active Shade. This now gives us a live connection between the light and our scene. Any changes we make to our light will automatically trigger the scene re-rendering. Now, with the Omni positioned so close to the floor, we're not seeing much spread of light from side to side. To change that, let's move the light halfway up the wall in the front view. Now that's the viewport you see in the lower left-hand corner of the interface. We can further spread the effect of the light by in the top view moving the light into the middle of the room. So it's pretty obvious that a scene light will do a better job of covering a wider area, spreading farther side to side in other words, if it's not positioned directly in line with or directly on top of a specific surface. Make sure to remember that in your own work. Let's move the light a little further away from our objects. In the top view, we'll move the light to the lower right-hand corner of the window. Then in the front view, we'll move it to the upper right-hand corner. Okay, let's take a look at some of our settings. With the light selected, we'll open up the Modify column in the command panel. Naming a light is done just the same way that you'd name an object. Let's change the name of the light to Light It Up. Down in the General Parameters section, directly below the modifier stack, you'll see a location where you can turn the light on and off. Now you can also do that directly inside the viewports by right-clicking on the light and choosing On/Off from the upper left-hand menu. Under the Intensity, Color, and Attenuation tab, you can change the color of the light. You'll do that by simply clicking directly on top of the color swatch. Now, adding color to a light will many times serve to add both an additional level of detail and a greater sense of realism to a scene, giving your work more character, even possibly providing a certain mood or a certain feel to the story that you're telling. I'm going to start by changing the light to a light blue. For that, I'll simply click in the middle of the red color ramp. Let's also try a light yellow. For that one, I'll go to the hue. Let's also experiment with both a light orange and a light green. And we'll finish it off with a light color of purple. To create more of a dramatic effect, we might lower that purple, taking its value to around 160. Let's take our light back to its original white color by clicking on the Reset button in the color selector. We can then close that dialog. You also have control over a light's strength or intensity with the multiplier value. You'll find that directly to the left of the color swatch. Let's try a multiplier of 0.7. Here's 0.5 and 0.25. So the lower the multiplier, the lower the wattage, if you would, of the light. Taking things back to the default value of 1, we can also intensify the light. Let's try a multiplier of 1.5. And we'll also give the value of 2 a shot. Now, one thing to always remember in lighting a scene is that too much light is almost never a good thing. It washes out the skins that you built, in addition to reducing the amount of contrast within the scene, which is something that you want. So with lighting, the old phrase is less is more. Less light, in most situations, produces more or better results. Let's take our multiplier back to 1. The light has a setting for excluding objects from being hit by that light. You can even control just how far a given light shines using something called attenuation. You can even add images into the area the light illuminates. We're skimming over those settings now because we'll be getting into each of those subjects in upcoming videos. Further down below, you have controls for your shadows, both under the shadow map parameters and the shadow parameters. You even have the ability to have smoke, or what is referred to as a volume effect, fill a light. I'll be showing you that too. Now, this thing about shadows. I previously mentioned that lights don't cast shadows unless told to do so. Let's take a look at that. I'll right-click in the active shade to cancel the view. From the menu, I'll choose Close. Now, to unhide a few things, I'll right-click again, then on the top right-hand side of the menu, choose Unhide All. Okay, with the additional objects now in play, let's reactivate our active shade. There you go, proof positive, no shadows, and as you can see, that's a pretty big thing. The additional shading that shadows offer increase your render times, but they also serve the important role of adding an additional level of both dimension and realism to a scene. Let's take a look at how you go about activating the shadows on a light. You can do that a couple of different ways. Back in the Modify column, under your General Parameters, you can simply check the Shadows box. Now, in order for our efforts to show in the active shade, we're going to have to do what they call Initialize the View. To do that, we'll right-click in the middle of the window, and from the menu, lower right-hand side, choose Initialize. That shadow casting option can also be turned off and on directly on the light. You'd simply right-click on the light source, and you'll find the option on the upper left-hand side of the menu. As you'll see, moving the light automatically updates the location of the shadows. We'll take our light in the top view over to the left-hand side. Let's undo that using Ctrl-Z, then lower the light in the front view. We'll also undo that. If you instead decide to move an object in the scene, again, things will update as to the position of the shadow. So that'll get you started with using Omnis. They're easy, they're functional, and they'll quickly become one of your primary assets when adding light to a scene.